Welcome to the show, Miriam.
Thank you.
I'm so happy to have you here. It has been a year since our last guided trip, and I literally took that as my real birthday.
Oh, sorry. I didn't know that.
Yes, that was 2 days ago last year.
I know.
And so that's why I wanted to take this opportunity to have a recap with you. And yeah, I saw that you're already emotional.
Yes.
Me too. Because yeah, it's really like a birthday celebration. Because on that day, I had a major breakthrough from my childhood trauma. And you definitely helped me a lot in that process. So I'm really, really grateful to see you again. And of course, grateful for that experience. And yeah. Oh my God.
Where do we go from here?
Yeah. Well, for the audience who haven't known you yet, I want to quickly introduce you.
Yeah.
Miriam is the founder of Guided Tripping. It's a company that provides supported psychedelic experiences for joyful empowerment. I love this so much. Supported psychedelic experience for joyful empowerment. That's exactly what I experienced.
Great.
With a lot of joy and power from within.
Yes.
And Miriam is definitely a great guide.
Thank you.
As you said on your website, your presence and care allow people to relax into their trip. This is exactly what I experienced. A lot of presence and care and love. And you offer mirrors, reframes, and interventions into a deeper layer of their being. You're just good at marketing.
I mean...
No, I mean,
thank
but
you.
It's true. So let's forget about what you said on your website, because this is the episode about you and about me and about us.
I hope so, yeah.
And yeah, it was, as I said, a very precious experience for me. And yeah, maybe we can start from my life before because that was really like a watershed.
Yeah, wow,
Yeah.
Yeah, tell me about it. Remind me, because
Yeah.
of course I've gone through our notes a little bit in preparation for this conversation. But yeah, there was a lot there. So
Yeah, definitely. Because before that, let's go chronologically.
so difficult.
Yeah. Well, I was sexually violated when I was a child and then as a teenager.
Yeah.
By my family members, and so that was like different layers of hardship, and luckily or unluckily, those memories were totally forgotten or were buried in. I guess that was like a
coping mechanism.
Very protective mechanism from my body or my mind.
Yeah.
So I didn't really recall them until 3 years ago when I started therapy. Well, that's a conventional talk therapy.
Right.
And well, before that, there were a lot of symptoms that I didn't know why. For example, I was
going on?
Yeah, exactly. I was very successful in many ways. Like I was doing my PhD, I was achieving a lot, but never felt enough. Like never really happy about my awards, and and constantly being anxious and hyper vigilant, and so there are like signs here and there like pointing to something, but I just didn't know why. And I was didn't have I would say really have a hard time like sleeping, chronic fatigue, and in relation to my relationships to people, looking back now, I saw a lot of unhealthy ways of relating, like pleasing or having a hard time saying no, all that. And of course, now I'm threading them and connecting those dots, but by then I had no idea what was happening.
Yeah.
And so I went to conventional therapy, and they diagnosed me as having generalized anxiety disorder.
Yeah.
And I would still say that's more of a symptom layer of stuff, because underneath I see it really as just trauma. Not just trauma as if it's something easy, but trauma.
You know.
And so to be fair, the therapy did help me a lot to gain my emotional awareness.
Yeah, exactly.
And learned
Awesome.
like basic emotional regulation techniques, like cognitive behavior therapy, CBT, those kind of very easy ways to regulate yourself.
Yep.
But I would say that's not the like solving the root problem.
Right.
And so through in the second year of my therapy, I started to collect all the fragments of the memories.
Right.
And I was so shocked when I really recollected them. And then I started my very long stuck period in therapy, because I guess a lot of people who have trauma may be very familiar with this. Like there is some threshold you just can't get past. And you go back to the trauma thing, but you can't really go back because that was too scary.
Right.
And then my reaction was I was totally frozen. I had this freeze response from, like, it's also a typical coping mechanism, basically. At that time, I was dissociating, so in therapy room, it's pretty much like this setting. Like I would, so I would hold a teacup and I would just freeze there.
Yeah.
And my mind went blank. I just knew that it's kind of painful, but I didn't really experience the pain.
Yeah.
So that has repeated for a few months, almost half a year before I found you.
Mm-hmm.
So in that therapy, I was trying very hard, like maybe it's my problem not being able to go through that threshold. Right. But until some point I was like, no, this really isn't working. I need to find something else. And then I found you. So that was from my then partner.
Yes.
And he also did a guided trip from you. And he was like, Miriam is amazing. She helped me like boost my self-esteem. And he was quite depressed before that. So yeah, that gave me a little hope. So I was like, well, might as well have a try if conventional therapy doesn't work. And before that, I used truffles recreationally, but never tried a very intentional use.
Exactly. Yeah.
That was a long story.
No, but it's thank you for sharing that again, and also in this context, because there's a lot there, and you already took a lot of steps. Yes. And gain some perspective, gain some vocabulary, gain some skills, like you said.
Yes.
And that helps a lot if you try and go on and try other things.
Yeah, I would say so. Actually, I thank you for pointing that out, because I also I was reading and listening to other like psychedelics treating trauma stories.
Yeah. And
I found a commonality, which is if you have some foundations from therapy or from communities, from nonviolent communication or whatever.
Yeah, mindfulness.
Mindfulness. And it can help through the journey, make it easier as well. And afterwards, the integration would be
for sure
more effective.
I think so, yeah.
Thanks. Yeah, and speaking of the difference between those forms of treatments, I would say what I was most I was missing most in conventional talk therapy was, well, first of all, the time frame.
Yeah.
It's here in the Netherlands, if you go for the therapist who's covered by the insurance companies, then you only got 45 minutes per session.
Yeah.
And for trauma treatment, I would say that's really too little.
It's too short.
Yeah.
Yes.
And because oftentimes it took some time to warm up, to establish the rapport, and then you go into the thing and you get stuck there, and then it's done.
The end.
It's the end. Yeah. I was thinking of that. I still feel a lot of pain. Like every time I was just thrown out of the froze mode, and then I need to go out
into the world.
Into the world. It was really like overwhelming into the world. That. And in between sessions, I was still working a 9-to-5 job. I was like moving like a zombie, because constantly thinking of what was really happening, what's wrong with me, and how can I function. Well, I can kind of function, but my heart was really like ripped open. And at that time I couldn't focus much on like housework as well, so I actually caused a lot of inconvenience for my housemates. But at that time I was more in a really suffering mode, so that I couldn't see other people.
You're imprisoned within yourself a little bit.
Exactly. So that was the time part. And the other is, I actually, it would have helped me a lot if they engage my body more, and either just pay more attention to your bodily sensations, or maybe have some light touch. That was what I needed a lot, because I was feeling lonely, was feeling not cared for. Although the therapist was trying very hard to empathize with me, I think we were really in the head a lot.
Exactly, yeah.
And I remember once I asked her for a hug, but, well, she diplomatically hugged me.
Yeah.
That was more painful.
It was not a full body.
no,
Come here,
not even, not much surface.
Yeah.
So, and she told me afterwards that this is really not allowed in that form of therapy. So I guess, that's her boundary, but then I also realized maybe I need another form. And later I found out there are many other like psychosomatic ways of treating trauma, which might be way more helpful. And and with you, I don't remember actually, but I think you helped me. There was some touch. Right?
It depends. And the thing is that one of the reasons that I don't particularly want to become a therapist is that I'm allowed to touch people. I think it's really, really good that people do have support from trained therapists in whatever modality is working for them at the time. Because, the way I work is I'm there a little bit in the before, a little bit after, and mostly during the experience. But other than that, you need more support, and you need other practices to integrate those experiences well. That said, during the experience, yes, if touch is the thing, then then we can arrange for that, and that can be holding a hand or having a hand somewhere, or some pressure maybe sometimes can be good. Or I've even had people just lying in my arms for hours, and that's always very sweet, and it's what I'm there for. Like, I am available on all the layers of my being in support of your process. And we have a lot of, we tend to think of ourselves as Homo sapiens, like the knowing human, but a lot of our brain is animal. And touch is really a great safe touch, and consenting touch is a very helpful thing in trauma, because a lot of trauma was created in relationship. And so having a new way of ingraining, this is what touch can be like too, this is what connecting can be like as well, is very helpful.
Speaking of which, I remember you also expressed your boundaries there. You said touches are welcome and sexuality is welcome as long as you don't involve me, or something like that. This is what you tell to your clients.
Exactly. There's 3 rules, and there's why I speak them is not because this might happen and we can't do that, but more to express how large the playing field is that we're in. And one boundary is aggression and anger are very welcome, but we're not going to break things or each other or ourselves, because sometimes people get violent towards themselves as well. But, so express that without hurting a thing or a person. The second is sexuality, like you mentioned. It's very welcome. It's such a huge part of our being. Totally. It can be a part of why the trauma can be very difficult, because it's something that we like, but there's trauma.
Exactly.
It's very iffy territory, and it's important to have clear boundaries there of, we can explore that within you. My sexuality is the only part of myself that I leave at the door. Everything else of me is online, and that means that we can also really explore without having reciprocity in that area at all. Which is another part of safety, and it's really important boundary, I think. And the third is, sometimes people go really inside, and I don't know what's going on for them. I try to ride with you a little bit, of course, but if you go really quiet, all I need to know is you're being nice to yourself in there. It's happened that somebody was having quite a difficult experience and they couldn't tell me, or they thought they couldn't tell me, or they were protecting me from it, which is really cute. But that's kind of why I'm there. So that's another non-optional, like if you're having a really difficult, starting to get overwhelming experience in there, you need to find a way to let me know. That's not optional. So those are the boundaries. And within that, and they're huge, within that anything can happen and everything is welcome. Yeah.
I love them. I love those boundaries. And the last one actually is very important, because I know, I actually have a friend who is, this is her maybe her pattern or something. She couldn't ask for help, even though she's not doing okay. And during her trip, like even if I asked her, like, are you okay? She's more like, I'm okay, but inside
she wasn't.
she's like, no. So I think hard. Naming that would have already helped. I'm inspired. And all the boundaries are also like child's playground, that's
exactly, that metaphor is so great. I love that metaphor.
You want to say that again?
Sure. So I don't know if this is like an urban legend or an actual piece of research, but what I heard this story and it just captures my imagination so much that I love it. So if you put a playground with like all these apparatuses and climbing things and seesaws and swings and all the things, children, and you let children in there, they will kind of huddle in the middle and just use the middle of the space. As soon as you put a fence around it, they will use the entire space up until the fence. And so they just use much more of the space. So having a boundary creates much more movement, actually, than not having a boundary.
Exactly.
And it allows for more. So this is one of the reasons why I think it's important to make them explicit, because then people understand the context and they're like, okay, apparently this is okay. But really, sometimes, I can remind people if I have a sense that something is going on, or it's the first time that they heard, no, your anger is welcome.
Yeah.
They're like, surely not. No, can't be. So then, I can nudge and remind, but having that, the boundaries clear helps create more freedom, interestingly enough.
Totally. Yeah, that's an interesting paradox. And speaking of boundary, and this is actually the topic of me or many people who are sexually harassed or violated, they're struggling most with. And I can speak from my own experience. I didn't even have the idea of boundary. I like, what is that? And maybe my surviving mechanism is to please and to put my own needs away and to cater for other people, and then you say a lot of yeses when you don't want to, or
you're not even aware you don't want to.
Yeah, exactly.
That's not even a relevant question.
No.
Right.
No. Yeah. Because your whole priority is to make peace, make maybe superficial peace, but you're internally you were at war, but you weren't aware of that. So actually, this is where the trip really helped me, because, well, when I ingested the psychedelic and when we went into the thing, that was the first time I actually embodied that younger me, the child me, like, because previously I was always thinking about from third person perspective, but that was the first time I really experienced it as she experienced it. And I was, of course, also terrified in there. And and interestingly, experiencing that full-bodedly actually gave me more power or something. Because, well, maybe when the trauma happened, you were like shocked and you couldn't move or you couldn't say no. But in our journey, I don't know if you remember that, I was like shouting 100 times.
Don't touch me!
No! I was like exactly in the same place. I'm so happy that we're recording it here. I was saying all the no's as if they were overdue, and finally, because they were stuck in my body for so many years. And in the saying, I said no, I shouted, and of course the adult me here was also screaming and shaking and sweating. That was a huge release. And that was also the first, really literally first experience of me saying no that clearly and that affirmatively. And
so good.
It's really beautiful and powerful. So and then I got this first embodied experience of saying no and having a positive result. Because I think that's also the thing. Like, you're so scared of saying no and maybe push people away or getting more punishment or saying no, and then you need to overcare the other person because of the impact of your no. So a lot of times then I realized, oh my God, I've been carrying so many burdens that's not mine. I take in people's feelings and be responsible for them. Especially I'm still speaking of like my parents, and because when things happened, I didn't dare to tell my mom because, well, I thought maybe she wouldn't trust me, or she would ignore me, or she would, I don't know, I just had a lot of fear based on other experiences.
It was way too risky.
And
so you dealt with it in a different way.
And that also makes me think, like, sexual trauma is never a single event. It's oftentimes, it's like a point on the whole thread that you had other experiences that made you think
your boundaries weren't really valid or interesting pieces of information.
Exactly. Both to the person or to people around. Like, basically, I didn't trust people would protect me or stand for me. So that
or
also,
respect them.
So that was very hard. But that moment was really like the crucial turning point. That I
Would you say that when you were able to really go into that experience, right, instead of looking at it from the third person perspective, that you were also able to take that third person perspective? In the sense, because this is something that people report often, is like, I was that child, but I was also the parent I would have needed then.
This is, I like this because I want to talk about another episode in that journey where, because, well, I had more than one experience.
There were chapters.
Chapters of
and there
trauma.
were repetitions, and there was
So yes, in another scenario, I did experience different parts of me, and that was also, thinking of it already making me like having goosebumps. So in that episode, I was also still traumatized, terrified, not daring to share with people, like as if my whole world went dark.
Yeah.
And the then girl me was standing in front of a crossroad, and I remember that was raining. I don't think that was from the psychedelic thing, but that really happened. It was raining. I didn't know what to do, having no one to share. So, but at that time, intuitively, I made a wish. So I looked up the sky, and I talked to whoever, or I talked to the future me.
Your future self, yeah.
Yeah, I asked my future self, could you please come back and save me? Or could you please go when you are able to go find help? And the moment I recollected that piece of memory, immediately that future me went back to the girl me, and you know, in the,
it was like a time travel movie.
Exactly, it's like a time travel, and I still remember the whole visual thing because well, it's very psychedelic and it's very sci-fi. It's like there were two spaces, and those two spaces were collapsing. So that crossroad and here.
Yeah.
And they're collapsing, and that child me and the adult me, they were also merging.
Yeah.
And that was like the literal image of integration. Like the spaces integrated, and the girls finally came together. They were hugging, and I kept telling her, I'm back, and also I seek help. I am asking for help. I went to therapy, and I see you, and and don't be afraid, I'm back. I always kept saying that I'm back. So that was I guess you were talking about like finding the ideal parent at that time they need, but in my case, myself, the adult me, became that parent she needed, and that was really beautiful. Wow. And it's just that one image. It's like Photoshop, like layers of image. They collapse and they merge.
Yeah.
Just that single image, or that single dynamic, that animation or whatever. That was what made me think, okay, this is the moment I rebirthed.
Yeah.
Because I'm no longer separating from myself, and I reclaimed my child. Yeah. And I'm never gonna let her go. So that was like, she gave birth to me.
I should have gotten a birthday cake with a candle in it for you.
Yeah, we have candles.
We have candles, yes.
Yeah. So so that was that, and this is the amazing thing about psychedelics, because all the memories are generated inside of you, like the new memories and new experiences, and they're so embodied.
Yes.
And you were not telling me to think that way. You were holding space, you were holding my hands, and all that happened inside of me, so that felt so much empowerment.
Yep.
Like I sorted those things out, and I me myself as my own hero went back, and so all of a sudden all the like self-esteem problem was also lifted hugely. I was like, fuck, I did it. I remember I was constantly saying, like, I was very grateful, and I was joking, like, Miriam, this is the easiest job in the world. The job you do.
And I was just sitting there going,
nothing.
Sure. Yeah.
I know, I knew that I was saying things silly, but I just wanted to make it true, because you did nothing. But of course, you did a lot.
It's like a catalyst, you know. I can't make anything happen, and catalyst in the sense that I am changed by these experiences, you know. I do. There is something that happens witnessing what goes on for another person. I do offer like you said, like a reframe or like a question that could help you go deeper into what's already going on for you. But I'm not making anything happen for sure. Yeah.
No. But yeah, jokes aside, I do want to value, like, there's so much, like, let me make it concrete. For example, you just said asking questions and reframing and intervening.
Yeah.
Because I remember in that trip as well, I was suddenly feeling a lot of love. I was like kind of confessing to a guy I was in love with, and I never dared to say love. I was like, oh, I love you. And you just came, what about turn that love inward to love yourself? I was like, because at that time, self-love was still quite a remote concept for me. Didn't, like, I was trying to understand that and learn, like, read a lot and watched a lot.
There's only so far you can go with just this bit.
Like, at that time I was so addicted to this spiritual
self-help
books and spiritual books, emotional intelligence books, videos, and understood all of them. Just didn't feel it. Still feels empty.
That was me too, for sure.
Yeah. And paradoxically, those books became another kind of coping mechanism. Like, you're trying very hard, like, learning and improving yourself.
Just learn more. If nothing's changing, learn more, read more, do more of this thing, because apparently you haven't done enough. You haven't found the right thing yet.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So at that moment it was definitely not something familiar for me, like turning the love inwards to yourself. And but so in that trip we dealt with that a lot, like repeatedly. And this is also the amazing part of the thing about psychedelics, because it's so long, so it solved my 45 minutes therapy problem.
We have all day, literally.
It's really long, and in the journey, of course, the time is stretched, or it's malleable. It's again even longer than the actual time. And you've been through lives, and so that gave me enough time to solve a lot of other problems, because I thought I needed the whole session to deal with the sexual trauma, and then it ended like
we went into bonus.
I had a lot of bonuses. Like, it was almost pretty much done in 1 hour, and then in the rest it's like I dealt with other big stuff that I thought I needed more sessions to deal with as well, like self-esteem. At that time I still had eating disorder, and all of them ended up with this idea of I'm not enough.
It comes down to the same root usually.
So that session was really overwhelming, of course, so much information. And that's why it took me a year. Like, even now I'm still integrating that session. And I don't think that's a bad thing. Like,
no,
I'm willing to take my whole life to integrate that. And
that was another thing, right? Oh yeah, we have time. I have time. It doesn't have to all happen yesterday. Wow.
We have time. And a lot of things at that time I didn't understand. It can take me half a year to come to this realization. Oh my God, that was what Miriam was saying during that trip. Oh my God, now I understand it. So, for example, you said in the trip that compassion and boundary go hand in hand. And at that time I was like, what the fuck is that? I don't understand.
I have to credit Brene Brown for that one.
Yes, I know.
Yes.
And only
but
after...
it's so good.
It's so good. Because I was forcing myself to have compassion. I then realized, for example, especially when you have sexual trauma, you want to go past that. You want to forgive. You do a lot of Ho'oponopono, you do a lot of, you try to be nice to yourself, try to be nice to the other people who hurt you. So you want to go past that hatred stage, as if it's not good to still have anger, still have hatred.
Oh no.
And then like wanting to be more enlightened, like I've already forgiven, that sounds a bit, but that's bullshit, I would say.
There is no anger in me anymore.
Yeah.
I have worked through all that.
Yeah. So actually I made that mistake. Well, it's just a part of the learning process.
Yeah, it's
I wasn't realized that, so I moved quickly past the anger, and I was like, okay, after this trip, I'm now a very compassionate person. I don't have hate. No, it's not true. And now I'm very okay with that, and I can even proudly share that, well, I can hold compassion and my anger together very well, and I don't want to let go of my angry little girl who's still shouting and screaming. And what does it mean to say I'm healed and that girl is gone? Well, it makes no sense. And anger helps me to know my boundaries and to help me protect me. So
but that whole word heal, right, is interesting, because it's to become whole. Often people think, oh, when I am healed, I won't have that thing anymore. No. It is, you won't want it to go away anymore.
Exactly.
It's a part of you. You realize it can't go away. It doesn't have to go away. It's integrated, literally. You know.
Yeah.
That's
literally, yeah. And it's definitely an ongoing process. Like now, I promise my hurt or angry little girl that whenever she wants to come up, either triggered or just want to come up, I will welcome her. And like, I'm never gonna say that session has healed me completely, or maybe after 5 years now I'm done with it. No, whenever you want to come up, then I will hold you. So that's how I talk to my child, my inner child.
I love it. So good.
That was also something I didn't understand when the journey finished. Yeah. And then I started to
things
navigate.
Percolate. Yeah. Percolates.
They kind of go. Yeah. It ferments, boils, and it took me time to also find my own compass, because this is another thing, especially with sexual trauma, and especially with if that happens in your family, then people experience, or at least I experience, a lot of complexities, a lot of paradoxes and conflicting feelings.
Loyalties.
Loyalty, betrayal, trust. And you still feel love to them, and you still have anger. So all of them are those feelings are still boiling in me. But that's okay. I really want to tell people, if they're in the same situation, just embrace that complexity.
Usually they're not mutually exclusive.
No.
And that's the thing, it's like, I can't love a person and be angry with them. Well,
you can.
Try that out. I think you can. Yes.
Yeah. And I would say, never take those self-help or whatever teachers say for granted. For example, they will always say, don't assume victimhood. But what if you do feel hurt and feel like a victim?
You were.
Yeah, you were. And don't speak for the perpetrator. Don't overprotect them. But there is part of you that still feels soft and tender towards the person himself, or aside from the behavior he's done.
Yes.
And all these subtleties, nuances are missing in most of the trauma stories in the mainstream.
Yeah. You are a victim, just not only that.
Yeah.
And he or she or they are perpetrators. Also, not just that.
Yeah, this is such a subtle line, and yeah.
Do you want to say a bit more about how that boundary and compassion thing feels for you now? Like, how do they?
Yeah, sure. The boundary is simple, just that was not okay. What happened was not okay. I was terrible, and I don't want that to happen again. I would say, like I shouted no, like fuck no, to what has happened and to what in the future I came through, like something remotely like that, I would say no.
Yeah.
That's my boundary. And if something happened in other people, I would say also that's not okay. Because this very sentence I couldn't say. Like when I first met you, I was like, I didn't even want to acknowledge this is something really not okay.
Yeah.
I was still trying to justify for them. I was trying to be compassionate.
Course.
That was like,
Yes.
I thought that was what I thought compassionate mean. Like I want to switch into the other person's shoes. Maybe they have difficulties. No, that's not the compassion. It's more like, that was not okay, but I will forgive myself for all the pain that I caused myself because of that. Like, because 10 years after that, I had a lot of suffering, and I had a lot of times when I just didn't think myself as enough, or the self-sabotaging, self-attacking. I will have compassion for that.
Yeah.
And I will have compassion for, and I don't know, sometimes if I'm in a more Zen mode, I would have compassion for the person. I think he has done his best. This is something like Brené Brown was saying as well. Like sometimes I can acknowledge that, sometimes I can't, and that's okay.
Yes.
I would never force myself to admit something that I don't agree with yet. So
You can try it on. If it doesn't fit,
yeah,
that's fine.
yeah, and that's the compassion we need.
Oh gosh, I don't even know why I'm sitting here. You're the expert.
No, at the same
Good.
This is actually this is the amazing part of your job. Like, it looks so effortless, but actually to be able to do your work, there's a lot of effort behind. Like I know what I know from you. You've worked a lot on yourself.
Yeah, that's true. I will admit to that.
You held space so safely, so that it gave me all the material to work on. Like not the actual material, but the space. You gave me the space.
That's
like the physical space as well. The safety I feel from you.
Yeah.
All that.
Yeah. The body, the embodied, the emotional, the mental. I hope that's the connection as well.
Yeah.
It's all part of that.
Oh my God, the connection as well, definitely.
Yeah.
Because I hardly had this kind of connection in therapy, in regular therapy. I've seen several therapists, and it doesn't. I could feel your heart like opening towards me, and I couldn't feel that there. Yeah.
That's also because the body is slower. The body is slower than the mind. So that your instinct, like I need more time, spot on. It is really important to give your whole system time to relax into a space, to feel trust, to check things out, to poke maybe a little bit, like, are you actually trustworthy? And a lot of it's hormonal, right? Like adrenaline, cortisol, stress.
Yeah.
That needs to cycle out of your system slowly. And then, on a psychedelic, your system is flooded with serotonin, for instance. Among other things, like there's stuff happening on all levels. Set and setting.
Yeah.
So with set and setting, we mean your mindset, like how do you go into it, and the setting in which the experience takes place, And I pull that a bit broader as well, which is, you know, do you have a support system around that? Do you, what is the setting within your life that this experience will drop into for integration purposes? And so that I want to, because I've been sitting on it for a while, like the experience that you've been having, that you had, was extraordinary. And yes, I've seen that happen in other versions, and other people have had really cathartic, beautiful watershed moments. And then bonus, that happens. It's also, please don't expect that to happen. Because, you know, a lot of people are afraid of bad trips or having this really dark thing that they can't control that comes over them, or it's going to be very painful or difficult. Yeah, that can happen, but actually a larger danger, if you will, is unmet expectations and disappointment after, or even during. Like, I was supposed to feel this thing, or I was supposed to see that thing, and it's not happening. And that can really get in the way of allowing the experience to be what it is, because you're expecting it to be a certain way and it's different. And actually, that whatever that is, I've come really to trust that whatever comes up is the thing. And expect the unexpected. You know? This is the most heard sentence in my sessions. I wasn't expecting this.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Let's talk more about from your side as a guide to hold space for people who have trauma or have other mental difficulties, mental, physical.
Yeah. I want to, like, that's really good that you ask that, because, like I said before, I'm not a therapist. I don't pretend to be one. A lot of healing can happen in a space like this, in an intentional space, but it's not what I'm here for. And so I always ask people a lot of things in the intakes around their medical and psychological history, how they are, you know, with triggers, what does that look like, how acute maybe is your anxiety or your depression right now, and if any of that is going on, I need you to have additional support outside of this, what I can and we can offer. And so you having a therapist was very, very, very important, even if that connection wasn't there in the same way. Or having a community, having your partner, you know, having people around you that know what is going on for you and that can support you. Maybe more embodied therapist would be a good person to have, like a psychosomatic, like you said, trauma release exercise, that kind of TRE people that, you know, that you have a team. Because in order for an experience like this to actually be that watershed, you need to continue with it. And you have to do that yourself, but not alone. So that's really, really important to mention. Like, I only can take on people that have these, I guess, symptoms, like you say. It's not the core, but it's a symptom of depression and the symptom of anxiety. This, if they have a history of trauma, sexual or otherwise, that is noticeably influencing their current way of being in the world, you need more. You need repetition, you need practice, you need to remind yourself. Yeah,
I really like your crab bucket.
The crab basket syndrome.
Syndrome. Can you say?
Sure. Yeah. So I don't know if this is. I think this is actually really true. So if fishermen out at sea go fish for crabs, they have these big crates, and they put them down on the bottom of the ocean, and they have like a bottom, but it's like a gauze thing. But they don't have a top. So the crabs wander in and go towards the bait. and then they're kind of stuck there. But those things don't have a top. But because as soon as one crab decides, I'm done here, I'm going, and tries to climb out, which in theory they can do, the other crabs pull it back down. And this is called crab basket syndrome. And I learned about this in a more psychological, human way. What this looks like is people are used to and attached to their version of you. And so they know you in a particular way. And if you suddenly start to behave in a different way, an example that's often used is if somebody starts to lose weight, a friend that could be like, you would expect be like super supportive of that, will get a little backhanded and will do these weird things or be like not actually really that supportive. And that is a subconscious thing because they're used to you being a certain weight, and that's how they know you and that's how they relate to you. And that can work with psychological things as well. If you suddenly start to put up boundaries, it can be like, what is going on with you? No. So it's really important in that respect for your context that you engage them and that they know what's going on for you, and that if you actively ask them, hey, I'm climbing out of this basket, can you help me do it instead of pull me back? Can you help me notice when I'm doing the thing I used to do? Can you double check with me if something is really okay with me because I'm still practicing setting my boundaries? Wow. And I can still automatically say, oh yeah, sure. So if you notice me saying, oh yeah, sure, immediately, please check with me. Like, you said that really quickly. Are you sure? Can you take a breath and check in with yourself and tell me if it's really a yes?
Wow. Yeah, that sounds very supportive.
Yeah.
And instead of pulling you down, you explicitly ask people to lift you up.
Yeah.
Lift you out from the basket.
And help you lift yourself up.
Yeah. And that also the whole crab basket syndrome shows how difficult it is to change after a session. And because I remember the first thing, even at the intake session, the first thing you told me was, you will fall back.
Yes.
I like it. It's also about setting expectations. It's not like a life-changing. It is a life-changing in a way, but it's not going to be long-lasting if you don't do anything on your own.
Exactly. And it'll do this. And then you get disappointed again or whatever. And what you need is like up.
Yeah.
Like you re-up on that thing. You use that neural pathway. You deepen the groove within yourself, because the groove of what you're used to is very deep. And it's gravity, you'll just plunk into it and go, here I am again. Great.
Yeah.
Wonderful. And then that compassion comes in really well. You go like, yes, we knew this was going to happen. It's okay.
Yeah. And the key is not fall, but to rise strong. Again, with Brené Brown.
Yes.
Really how to make mistakes and fuck up and then continue growing.
Yeah.
So all those, I really like how you set the boundaries, the expectations very well, and then gave me all those tools to rise strongly. And I just love that.
Yeah.
And also in that trip, I realized how important my environment is, because I used to struggle a lot on my own, not knowing that maybe my friends were not supportive, and maybe I need to change a living environment.
Yeah.
And then in the trip, I realized I'm just like a plant. I need good soil. And and why am I gonna stay in that polluted soil and then struggle for myself?
Yeah.
I need to transplant myself. And then in this whole year, I've been making so many new friends and moving from different work environments, living environments, and just really careful about my soil. And and community, definitely, physical online community and circling, maybe we'll talk about it in another episode. All that. It's and your own practice of whatever, meditation, yoga. basically integration is about setting
yourself up.
yourself up. Yeah.
Yes, for success instead of
setting yourself up.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. And lastly, speaking of trauma and psychedelics, would you advise people to do it on their own if they can't afford a guide?
Right. Yeah, that is a difficult topic, right?
Mm.
Because it can be so rich and so helpful, but it's a double-edged sword in a way, because if there's not the right support, then it can actually be re-traumatizing.
Mm.
Right, so you go into that space and you don't have that perspective of your own older self that is holding you, then you just freak yourself out completely.
Yeah,
and that would
amplify.
It might.
Yeah,
it might. And I don't want to be like a fearmonger, and I don't want to be like everybody just needs to come to me, you know, because that's the only way. But it is really, really important to have some form of support. This could be a friend that you trust. There are some things that this friend would then need to be able to do, but definitely also have, you know, like backstops and fallback options, and like if something goes awry, that you know what to do then and who to reach out to, and that you tell that you have made that commitment to yourself as well. Because maybe like your friend was inside going, no, I can't say that I'm actually not okay. There needs to be, I don't know, you need to give yourself permission or actually commit to saying something, because otherwise you'll just suffer and dig a hole deeper that was already there, and that's just I would hate for that to happen, really. So there's a lot of potential, but it comes with a few caveats. I think that's really it's a bit of a rabbit hole, so we could
definitely
go into that, but handle with care. Yes.
And be gentle to yourself, I would say.
Yes.
Especially if you're doing it alone, then feel safety first.
Yeah.
Like feeling safe in that space as well. Yeah. And then is there any best practice for guides, either professional guides or if a friend is sitting, any advice?
Yeah. For sure. Know your limitations. I know that I am not trained as a sexual trauma therapist, right? What I am good at, because of circling and other practices, is being with somebody where they are without... so there's a difference between, you know, empathy can maybe look like, oh, I need to, or sympathy, you know, like I need to feel as horrible as she does. No, actually, I can witness that. I can witness that, and I can have a kind of calm, warm, loving vibration. I can show you I am not going anywhere, even though you're having a really difficult time. I am here. I don't have to solve anything for you. It's not mine to solve. So check your helper syndrome at the door. That's really important, and know your limitations. Just be with a person. That's all that's needed. Then again, and have a backstop. Like if something's starting to happen that you really don't know how to handle, and it's above your pay grade, shall we say, make sure that there is someone on call or somebody, you know, that has more of the expertise that you need in the moment. Keep breathing. Have that person breathe too. Have them check in with their body so that they realize it's not just this. I am more. I am here. I am safe. Currently, nothing bad is happening to me, so I am given an opportunity to go back and be with that little girl in a way where she used to have to cordon that part off. Now I can open that door and be with her, and integrate her into my being. But if like you said, in that sense it's easy, but what's hard is to not do to not do things and to not, make suggestions unless they're really asked for, to make sure that if you do make a suggestion, it's just that. It's with an open hand, like, could it be like this? Or I had a person that was in, and I asked them a question, and they said, no, I'm not there yet. This needs to go on for a little while longer, and I need to grapple with this, and then maybe we can move there, right? So really trust your person as well. Be as much as you can in tune with them.
Yeah. Thanks. Yeah, that's very helpful. And one last question. So if there's any other people like me who had some trauma or had difficulties, and they want to find psychedelic supported trips with joyful empowerment, or just want to have some try intentional use of psychedelics, and maybe want some guides, how would you suggest that they tell which guide is trustworthy?
Right.
What kind of service?
I want to quickly mention that we're in the process here in the Netherlands. Me and a good group of other people are in the process of forming a professional association for truffle guides here in the country. We're in that good position because it's legal here, and so we can be more out in the open. So there's websites that you can go to that also have like rating systems. Definitely have a long conversation with the person that you're considering, whether it's going to be a group or a one-on-one, which we specialize in. And trust yourself. If you have that conversation with that person, how do you feel in that connection? It'll be like an exercise. Like if you're not used to checking in with yourself, it'll be a little exercise.
That feels like a catch-22. You may need a trip to be more in touch with your inner
But these things start as soon as you think, maybe.
Yeah. Like
that's kind of where it starts, the trip, if you will. And then so. Yeah, what does trust feel like to you? How do you know trust is happening? What are the indicators within your system of that happening? Or what's absent, Because often it can be the absence of distrust, maybe, right?
Yeah. And technically, any standards of...
Yeah, so part of that association will also be a code of ethics that everybody that is a member or becomes a member will need to adhere to and subscribe to. We're also in the process of getting more professional standards, so like certification type processes, but it's all very fresh and new still. So ask your person what their, there's no school yet, but what their credentials are, like what it is that they, what their view is on, something like that. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you so much, Miriam, for joining me with this session.
It's so rich.
It is. And
I'm so happy. I'm so happy to hear these things. It's so beautiful.
Thank you.
You have a gorgeous mind and these metaphors, and it's just really good. Yeah.
Thank you so much. You helped me activate that, definitely.
Sweet.
Yes. And I'm really happy that as I said, this can be another integration session for me, because we go through together what we've been through, and having some new insights at different angles from that is so helpful.
Great.
And yeah, we're both doing beautiful works.
Yay us.
All right. Thank you. And
thank you.
See you next time.
Yeah.
Which is soon.
To be continued.